What's going on? What's going on, everyone? How are you, Facebook? I trust and hope you guys are doing amazing today. Do me a favor as people start to hop on here. This was kind of impromptu, last minute. I wanted to. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to just share my thoughts with you on the big deal that Joe Rogan landed with Spotify. And great for Joe Rogan, right? Hats off, salute. But what does that mean to you? And what does that tell you? The fact that the largest podcaster out there can land $100 million deal. So I'm going to share my thoughts on that. And again, more importantly, what does that mean for you? Like, why should you care? And then, pretty frequently, I want to say at least once or twice a week, I get hit up and people are always asking me like, hey, I'm interested in starting a podcast. Like, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? And I'm super grateful that they come to me because they value my opinion enough. So I want to kind of share my story with you as far as like, why did I even decide to do a podcast, launch a podcast about 4 years ago, and why you might consider doing one. So I actually have, I presented on this about a year ago on why you should consider creating a podcast, how it can benefit you, your brand, your business, while massively impacting others. And for me, that was the big motivating driver. I've always been a giver. I've always wanted to help people. And I was having conversations about business, about life, about marketing on a pretty frequent basis. And I was like, at the end of those conversations, I'd tell myself like, damn, I wish that was recorded because I think that could help some other people. So I'll kind of get a little bit into my story, but more importantly, I'll share with you some of the slides from this deck on why you might consider starting a podcast, and maybe if it isn't even a podcast, why you should be putting out content, right? You have a unique voice, you have a story, you have a message, and I find a lot of people don't put it out there because of fear, because of insecurity. They don't know what to talk about. So this isn't going to be a long show. I have my team huddle, our daily huddle, in about half an hour here. So I'm guessing this will probably be like a 15-20 minute live. As always, anytime I hop on here, I want to answer questions. I got my man, Anthony. Good morning, Anthony. Awesome having you on, brother. So guys, any questions you have, I'm happy to answer them, whether it be about podcasting, real estate, business, pretty much anything. If I can't answer it, I'll just let you know. I'm not going to BS you. And maybe I can point you in the right direction and connect you with someone. But Joe Rogan just landed. He announced it yesterday. Wall Street Journal reported $100 million contract to exclusively, as of September 1st, move his entire library of podcasts and content, the Joe Rogan Experience, over to Spotify. So starting Joe Rogan announcement, the podcast is moving to Spotify. Starting on September 1st, the podcast will be available on Spotify as well as all other platforms. And then at the end of the year, it will move exclusively to Spotify, including the video version, and it will remain free. Exact same show. So that's pretty cool because it kind of reminds me of Howard Stern years ago when he signed that massive deal with SiriusXM. The only way you can listen to Howard Stern is if you're a subscriber and you pay the $10 a month or whatever it is. I don't listen to SiriusXM. What's cool about Joe is that is he's keeping the show free. And immediately when I heard this news, there was 4 big winners that popped up for me. Number one, salute, Joe Rogan, $100 million contract is incredible. Guy is super talented. If you haven't listened to Joe Rogan, he has such a knack for being able to interview people, make them feel comfortable. Obviously, the guy's a successful comedian. Years ago, he hosted Fear Factor, which is kind of a funny, goofy show about getting people to do just weird, crazy things that I would never do. As far as eating and all that kind of stuff. And then he's obviously a UFC commentator, but the guy is probably the top podcaster out there. I think the numbers I saw are somewhere between 150 and 200 million downloads a month, that's insane. I mean, that's just massive. So the guy's got just a huge following and audience. And I think, number one, he's a big winner, $100 million contract. Now, it's a multi-year deal. They didn't stay for how long? I'm guessing it's 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years. So if you break that up, maybe he's making, but from what I also read, there's a lot of escalators too, based on like performances and things of that nature. So I'm sure it's a massive, massive win for the guy. 52 years old. He's been podcasting 11 years. He was doing it before it was even popular. So just, huge shout out to Joe Rogan. I mean, that's awesome. Number 2, Spotify. Genius, brilliant move on Spotify to take basically Google and YouTube's top podcaster and take that, the biggest player, off the chessboard for YouTube and Google. What's crazy is I read that, and these numbers might be off a little bit, but it was a huge jump in valuation. Company was worth $30 billion as of May 17th. As of yesterday, it's worth $35 billion in valuation. So the stock rose, I don't know how much, basically overnight. So $5 billion increase in valuation from signing the top podcaster out there for a $100 million deal. I would love to know the ins and outs. And if I'm assuming, Joe Rogan's a smart guy and I'm sure he's got a management team. I'm assuming they went back to YouTube and Google. And I wonder what happened there, if YouTube just completely dropped the ball and didn't sign Joe Rogan. But I think the third winner, obviously, is anybody that subscribes and listens to Joe Rogan. They're going to be able to continue to do so for free. And then most importantly, which is why I wanted to hop on here, the fourth winner is anybody who produces content, right? Or anybody thinking about producing content. So podcasters, YouTubers, if you're just sharing your thoughts, maybe LinkedIn or what's this other platform? TikTok and all these, anybody who's out there producing content. I think it's a big win for us, guys. Number one, I got people that reach out to me on a pretty frequent basis and are always asking me like, hey, what do you think about starting a podcast? What would you do? Should I do it? And I have a lot of thoughts on that, more than probably I should be sharing on here, just because I don't know that I have the time. I mentioned at the top of this Facebook Live, I actually presented. Let me share my screen with you guys here really quick. Give me a second. Share screen. Let me share my screen with you. Let me actually hop into that right now. Do me a favor, guys. Can you just shoot me a quick comment? Let me know that you can see my screen, obviously, and that you can hear me. I should have asked that. And again, if you have any questions about this or anything else, happy to answer them. I got about half an hour here. So if anybody watching can just give me a quick comment. You know what? This platform I'm using, for some reason, the comments are not coming through. So let me just quickly hop over to my Facebook page and let me see if I can see. Sorry, let me mute this for a second. Okay. All right. I think you guys can see this. Do me a favor, share this broadcast with anybody. If you can, please, I'd greatly appreciate it. I can see and hear you. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So check this out. About a year or so ago, I created this presentation and I delivered it probably in front of a room of about 35, 40 people, a mastermind that I'm in. And I did it because I've been podcasting now since the first show was June 6, 2016. And right now we're, 420 something episodes I've published. I've done 2 episodes a week and I haven't missed a week since June 6, 2016. And that's the first thing I want to kind of start with. If you are thinking of doing anything, whether it's start a business, anything you're thinking of doing, commit to it and be consistent. Because without consistency, you're not going to gain momentum. You're not going to gain traction. And I think I read a stat somewhere that most podcasts kind of like die. They wither away after like the 5th, 6th, or 7th episode or something. It's a commitment. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes some thought. At least if you want to grow it and you want to impact people. If your sole end game is to just monetize the podcast and you just want it to be like an extra income source for you, I'm not saying you can't do that. I just don't know that you're going to fully be able to get behind it if that's your sole goal, because this is kind of like SEO. It takes time. Unless you're a celebrity, unless you have a massive audience, generally speaking, you don't just launch a podcast and you have just tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of downloads a month. It takes time to grow and it takes time to build. So why should you consider creating a podcast? If you do create the podcast, how can it benefit you, your brand, your audience? And for me, this was a big one, massively impacting others. Again, I shared that the reason I decided to start the Flip Empire show is because I was having all these conversations with people about wholesaling and marketing and business and growing a team and personal development. And inevitably, after each one of those conversations, I would say to myself, damn, I wish that was recorded. I kept saying that. And finally, I'm just like, screw it. I'm going to launch a podcast. Like, let me just, and here's the thing. Any of my friends watching this know I'm not very techie. I'm not stupid. I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't like getting into the tech weeds. And the thought of getting a microphone and a mixer and this and that, I'm like, how does this even work? So my initial plan was just to like take my iPhone, hit the voice memo, and just record my thoughts. And then I started to like do a little bit more research and realize it wasn't that complicated. So this was a stat I shared. I'm not going to regurgitate and vomit all these stats and numbers on you, but podcasting has exploded. It's big. It's not going anywhere. If Joe Rogan's $100 million contract to move over to Spotify to host a podcast and the video isn't evidence of that, I don't know what is, but podcasting isn't going anywhere. This was as of last year. I'm sure these numbers have increased. So podcasting is super, super important. I'm going to skip over this slide. If you're watching this, chances are you have either listened to the show. If you haven't, I would highly encourage you to hop over, subscribe to the Flip Empire Show. 2 shows a week, a masterclass expert interview and a Q&A interview that I typically just do by myself. And then more importantly, what are the benefits of hosting a podcast? There's a plethora of benefits, right? These are just some of them. Number one, obviously, you have a voice, right? You have a message. I encourage you to share that with people, right? Because you have value to add. You have your own unique experience. There's only one of you. So whatever your message is, whatever your mission is, share it with people. It gives you the ability to touch and impact and inspire others. The key is, though, to be authentic. Be yourself. Don't try to be Joe Rogan. Don't try to be anybody else. Be yourself, because the biggest compliment I think I have ever received about my podcast is that I come across genuine and sincere. And I think the biggest reason that's the best compliment I can get is because I put my heart into this and I genuinely am myself. I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not faking it. I share the wins. I share the losses. I share the setbacks. I share the comebacks, the whole nine. So speak your voice, share your message, share your mission. It gives you the ability to grow an audience, which obviously can have a positive impact on your business, your personal brand. It's almost also, when you have a podcast or when you have an audience and a platform, it's kind of like an unfair easy button to connect with somebody that you might want to connect with because you have this platform and people want to be on it. It gives you the ability to just expand your network, right? And that's something that ever since I started the business in 2005, I've been doing this now 15 years. As far as running a wholesaling business, I've always seen the value of networking and connecting with the right people. And that's why I invest so heavily in coaches and mentors and masterminds. And I'm just such a big advocate because I know how much I've gained from those connections, from the relationships, from the network, from the resources, etc. So it gives you the ability to connect with people that maybe otherwise would have been a little bit more challenging for you to connect with. Obviously, you're seen as an authority figure. You have built-in credibility. You have more exposure. And then it really has improved my communication skills. And yes, do I say ums and ahs and things like that every so often? Yeah, I think a lot of us do, right? But I just, the ability to be able to communicate and articulate my thoughts off the fly without really, this is kind of crazy to a lot of people, but I do some planning when I record a podcast, but like this, I decided 15 minutes ago I was going to do this. And I've gotten better at being able to share my thoughts just kind of on the fly, impromptu. And it's because I do a podcast twice a week. And so naturally, anything you do consistently, you're just, at least I would expect that you should get better, right? So aside from that, there's a lot of opportunities. If you have something in particular that you want to promote or sell, obviously you have that built-in platform. You can do so. Affiliate commissions and sponsorships and speaking gigs. Here's the crazy thing, guys. 4 years into this, I barely, aside from Ascend, when Steve and I launched Ascend, maybe several months into that was the first time that I actually started really promoting something. My intent with the Flip Empire Show was never to monetize. I've never had a sponsor on there. The sponsor I have now is about Ascend, which is the mastermind and coaching group that we're so passionate about that we run. So I've never had a sponsor on there, despite having some opportunities to do so. Yes, some affiliate commissions. Yeah, I've generated some money and I've monetized it from affiliate commissions, but it's always been a product or service that I use and/or have used, and I know the people behind it. You have opportunities to speak. People will bring you leads and deals. So if you're watching this, chances are you're a real estate investor, you're an entrepreneur. you can create a podcast and use it to funnel opportunities your way. So one of the things I highly recommend, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is try to go niche, an inch wide and a mile deep versus going super wide. The reason this is called the Flip Empire Show is because in 2006, I bought the domain flipempire.com. And I thought first of all, I couldn't believe it was available. I bought that. I bought flipfreedom.com and flipfortunes.com and several others. By the way, those last two are available if you guys are interested in them. Just hit me up. But Flip Empire was always a domain I wanted to brand and develop. And I was consulting. I paid John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. You guys might know him. He's got one of the top business podcasts out there, EO Fire. And I paid him for an hour of his time, and I was just consulting with him. And this show was going to be called like the Real Estate Wholesaler Show or something like that. It was going to be just about wholesaling. And in passing, I mentioned to John, I'm like, yeah, I own this domain, this and that. And he's like, wait, what? You own that domain? He's like, dude, it's got to be called the Flip Empire Show. You got flipempire.com. That's a valuable domain. And I'm like, I always wanted to brand and kind of develop it. So that's why this is called the Flip Empire Show. But the truth is that if I was starting a podcast today, and I've considered starting another one for our real estate business, I would be super, super niche. I would consider starting a local podcast about maybe doing about South Florida real estate or Miami real estate. So there's an idea out there for anybody listening. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But most importantly, this is part of like my life's purpose, is being able to just communicate and being able to try to hopefully impact people's lives. And so whenever I get testimonials or anything like that, it means everything to me, because that's why I do it. So I'm going to kind of fly through this, guys, because you guys probably hopped on here to just hear my thoughts about Joe Rogan's Spotify deal. I think it has a big ripple effect on content creators. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because you might be thinking to yourself, I want to produce more content. I want to be out there. I want to create content. But maybe I'm fearful, or maybe I'm insecure, or maybe whatever. What are people going to think about me? What I would say is, who cares? Do it anyway. You're going to get past that fear. And again, you have a message, you have a voice, you're unique. There's only one of you. So think about what platform. Maybe a podcast isn't the best platform for you. Maybe you prefer to write. So maybe writing post on LinkedIn makes more sense. So figure out what medium makes sense for you. Do you prefer to speak? Do you prefer to write? There's a million ways to produce content. Follow somebody like Gary Vee. He's got just crazy amounts of content on the topic of putting out content. Podcasts, there's interview-based, topic-based, Q&A. Mine is a hybrid of these top three. And then there's other, you can do Steve Trang, great podcaster out there in the real estate space. He has actually people prior to COVID anyways, fly into Phoenix and they're in front of him face to face. There's a variety of things you can do. Have fun with it. If you're going to do it, there's some podcasting equipment stuff, and then there's some lessons learned. And then ultimately my advice, here's what I'm going to do, guys. If you have any interest in this, let me stop sharing. If you have any interest in this, this slide deck, let me know. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to incentivize you. I'd love to send it to you, and I'll send it to you for free anyway. But if you subscribe to the Flip Empire Show, and then you just let me know, shoot me an email. I'm happy to email you the slide deck and answer any questions you guys have. So let me do this. Let me just put that. So yeah, head over, subscribe to the Flip Empire Show. I'm happy to send you the slide deck. And let me hop over and see if there's any questions here. Anthony, if we're producing content for our wholesale investor sites as well as our home buyer sites, is there anything specific we should be doing? Yeah, man, it's a great question. I'm sure we'll talk about it on our coaching call. That's a loaded question. Number one, figure out who your audience is. Figure out who are you speaking to. So start with the end in mind, and then reverse engineer the process. When you speak on a podcast or anything else, you always have to know who you're speaking to. What are their pain points? What are their challenges? What do they want? And then craft your message to speak directly to them. So when you say, is there anything specific we should be doing? Maybe you can elaborate. Let me know exactly what you mean by that. But that's a deep, deep question. And there's a lot of different ways I can take and answer that question. So let me know. And I'm let me see here. Frank, what's up, buddy? So yeah, guys, I'm so sorry. For some reason, I'm having a little bit of a hiccup. I'm not seeing any other comments that are popping up here. But Anthony, if you have any other questions about that, I'm sure we'll talk about it when we connect this week or next week. But let me know. Yeah, always start with the end in mind. Start with the avatar. Who are you speaking to? Who's your podcast listener? Who's the audience? And then reverse engineer the process and make sure that you're speaking your truth, but speaking directly to your audience, if that makes sense. So, guys, that's all I got for you today. Again, this was kind of a last minute thing. If you have any interest in that slide deck, happy to send it to you for free. I'll email it to you if you can. My only small ask is head over to flipempire.com/podcast. Subscribe to the show. And then every Monday and Thursday, I release podcast episodes. So appreciate you guys. If you want to share this, I would greatly appreciate it. But if not, I think this is a pretty big deal, Joe Rogan, Spotify deal, and what it means for anybody that's out there producing content. So have an awesome day. Okay, we will talk soon. Take care.